Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. We are privileged this evening to study together with the help of Hashem in our Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers series. We study this evening Perek Aleph, Mishna Het, Chapter 1, Mishna 8. Chapter 1, Mishna 8. Yehuda ben Tabai, v'Shim'on ben Shetach, kibelu mehem. As we have spoken in our studies several times, there are references in the first chapter of the Ethics of the Fathers of two great men that worked together in leadership of the Jewish community. One was the head of the Sanhedrin, one was the assistant, one was the head of the court system. And Yehuda ben Tabai, Shimon ben Shetach were the next in these lines called Zugot, the two great rabbis that worked together. And they received their tradition from the two aforementioned rabbis that we learned about last week and 2 weeks ago, from Yehoshua ben Parachya, from Nitayo Arbeli. Tonight's study in Mishnah 8 is the teaching of Yehuda ben Tabai, who says as follows: Yehuda ben Tabai omer, al ta'as atzmecha ke'orechei hadayanim. Do not be as those people who offer advice and they tell those people involved in different kinds of court cases, they give them suggestions on which type of arguments should be raised in order to succeed in their court case. They give improper levels of advice to litigants in court cases. Al ta'as atzmecha ka'orechei hadayanim. What's wrong with giving advice? The rabbis teach regarding a verse in Isaiah, in Yeshayahu Nuntet, Pasuk Gimel. There is a pasuk in Yeshayahu that speaks of Siftotechem Diberu Sheker. Your lips speak falsehood. The rabbis make reference to this text in Tractate Shabbat, page 139a, and they say, what is the reference? Regarding which type of speech are we talking about? Of Diberu Sheker. Siftotechem Diberu Sheker, Elu Orechei Hadayanim. This, claim the rabbis, is a reference to people who teach litigants which are the best arguments. What are the most sound arguments that can be presented to use in their courtroom cases, even though these arguments are not necessarily true? But they give advice. They tell them, you want to win the case? Say this, say that. Al ta'as atzmecha ka'orechei hadayanim. I don't want to go into details, but I know of cases where lawyers, God forbid, I'm not speaking against lawyers, some of the greatest people in the world are lawyers, but I know of a case where a lawyer advised a client to make a certain claim in court, which was completely untrue, in order to succeed in their particular case. I once spoke at length with a close friend of mine, who at the time was a prominent criminal lawyer in the United States. I asked him if he offers defense even to criminals that he knows are really guilty. You know, the conversation was fascinating. Al ta'as atzmecha ka'orechei hadayanim. You have to be careful, even if you want to win a case. It has to be done in a proper way. Tzedek tirdov. When you're pursuing righteousness, pursue it righteously. Our Mishnah of Yehuda ben Tabai warns us to be careful with our advice to assist people in their discussions in the court. Just because an argument presented would help the person receive the favored judgment of the judges does not justify teaching, encouraging, supporting false arguments and false information. An expert in law, an expert in halakha, knows exactly which arguments are cogent. The very fact that he is aware that certain statements can be or will be convincing and compelling suggests Yehuda ben Tabai can theoretically be seriously, spiritually damaging. The rabbis relate a story in Tractate Ketubot, page 105b, about one of the great sages, Rabbi Ishmael bar Elisha. Rabbi Ishmael bar Elisha was a Kohen priest and was entitled to certain special required offerings and gifts presented to the Kohanim. Someone approaches Rabbi Ishmael, presents him with a great gift of the Reshit Hagez, one of the gifts, one of the priestly gifts. Rabbi Ishmael accepts it, and then the rabbi asks him, where exactly are you from? The visitor tells Rabbi Ishmael that he just arrived from a long journey. He lives very far away. There's no other Kohen priest that you could have given your gift to between your place of residence and here? Well, of course there is. But I had a certain court case that I wanted to settle in this area, and I came to you, and I'd like you to be the judge. Rabbi Ishmael says, no way I could be the judge. You just gave me a gift. And Rabbi Ishmael sets up a court. He appoints two judges. He selects objective judges. But the Gemara points out something fascinating. That sitting and just listening to the discussions in the argumentation of the two sides, Rabbi Ishmael, throughout the process, was constantly thinking, I wish he would argue that. He should have said that. He could have said that. And Rabbi Ishmael says, wow, I'm not even connected to him. All I did was receive a gift. And the whole time I'm just thinking, well, this argument would be a better argument to say, and that argument would be a better argument to say. He was hoping the whole time that he would present this argument or that argument, for by doing so, he would emerge triumphantly. Rabbi Ishmael then taught the following teaching. He says there's a certain danger in any form of gift, in any form of bribe, in any form of partiality or favoritism. Amar, ibai ta'in hachi, ibai ta'in hachi. If he wanted, he could have said this, he could have said that, he should have said this, he should have said that. Tipach nafsham shel mekabalei shochad. Uma ani shelo natalti. V'im natalti, sheli natalti. Kach. I didn't accept any kind of bribe here. I didn't ask him for any kind of gift. And yet I'm so involved in trying to figure out a way that this person could argue in a way that will help him succeed. Mekabalei shochad. Those people really accept bribes. Al hat kama v'chama. Al ta'as atzmecha korachei hadayanim. Be careful. Be cautious. Don't offer assisted suggestions of argumentation which may slant the case improperly. Many of the commentaries read our Mishnah as a warning to the judges themselves, suggesting that Yehuda ben Tabai is admonishing them to serve their role as judges, not as lawyers. Al tas atzmecha korchei hadayanim. Dayanim, shofatim, judges, be careful. Don't ask leading questions in the discussions in the court which will assist one of the parties. Stay objective and don't guide any one of the sides. Yehuda ben Tabai continues, Uchashiyu ba'alei hadin omedim lefanecha yiyu be'einecha kirisha'im. Don't assume the righteousness of any one of the two sides. Often, someone will approach you and tell you of the atrocities carried out against them by another individual. And a person very often is they listen and they're quick to condemn. Be careful. You're only hearing one side. You're not impartial. you are in the verge of concluding that the other party is guilty without properly understanding the totality of the situation. They are both to be suspect in your eyes. See them both as potentially being wrong. Who really knows who is the correct one in this dispute? Have you carefully analyzed the two sides? Consider them both to be guilty. Other commentaries read our Mishnah as a warning to judges never to prejudge a case. For instance, imagine a case where the righteous sage of the community is in court monetarily arguing with the local gangster, and you're sitting as a judge. Here's the great ethicist of the community, and here's the great criminal of the community. It's open and shut, right? It's obvious. Not obvious at all. They both have to be suspect in your eyes. Be careful. Be careful. Moshe Rabbeinu taught us. Our great teacher Moses taught us in the book of Deuteronomy. Shamoa bein achechem. Listen carefully to both. To both. You can't listen to one side without listening to the other. In the language of the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page Zayin Amud Bet 7b, Azhara lebeit din shelo yishma divrei Baal Din kodem sheyavo Baal Din chaviro. You can't tell, I want to speak to you before the other one arrives. Azhara leBaal Din shelo yatim divarav ladayan kodem sheyavo Baal Din chaviro. You know why? Because we learn in the book of Proverbs, and anyone who, you can know this intuitively or life experience, Tzaddik Harishon Brivo. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 17. The first to present his or her case seems everly so righteous in his or her grievance. There are commentaries who ask, why does it say they should both be considered Rishaim? Why should they both be considered, wicked? Consider them to both be righteous, And I saw several approaches to this. If you're interested, I saw a discussion of this in several places. Amongst them, in Rabbi Gedalia Felder Zatzal, I wrote a beautiful commentary on Pirkei Avot called Yisodei Yeshurun. And if you're interested, you could consult in his writings. He discusses this question. The Mishnah concludes by stating the following: While in the midst of the deliberation, they should be in your eyes as wicked. Uchesheniftarim milefanecha yiyu be'einecha kizakain kishekibelu alehem et adin. When they are dismissed from the case, when the case is over, when the discussion, the verdict has been rendered, and they accept the verdict, consider them both as zakaim. Both are innocent. Once they have accepted the true judgment, they have removed themselves from this category of suspicion, and now they are both righteous. I saw in some versions of the Mishnah it says not zakaim, but tzadikim. There are certain manuscripts where it says shekiblu alehem et hadin. Once they accepted the verdict, they should be considered like tzadikim. In our version, it says zakaim. But whatever it means, tzadikim means the righteous. After accepting the objective decision, they are now both righteous. They are both zakaim. They are both tzadikim. How is that so? One is innocent and one is guilty, right? One has to pay, and the other one was righteous. The party that was correct in the dispute is righteous, for his defense arguments were true, and they were valid. So he's surely zakai and tzaddik. But the other side is also righteous, for he or she is now accepting the judgment and rectifying any wrongdoing. This acceptance of the objective ruling also brings the other party to the level of zakaim, to the level of tzaddikim. The Gemara teaches in Sanhedrin 7a, the joy that a person should experience should never happen to anyone. There should never be any need for anyone to lose any any part of their property. Hopefully everything should be done in a proper way. Let's say theoretically. Let's say they're arguing over a certain garment, or the payment has to be that they give up their garment to the other person. So the Gemara talks about someone who the court ruled against them and they have to take off their jacket. They have to take off their coat and give it to the other party. The Gemara teaches the joy of even losing one's case as long as righteousness has prevailed. Hahu dahava kamar vazil. There was a person who used to say, "The azel mi beidina, v'shaklu glimei." If a person was leaving the courtroom and the court ruled that he has to give up his own coat, his own jacket, so what should he do? He should sing. He should sing as he's leaving the courtroom. Lizmar zemer v'leizel ba'archa. Let him sing as he goes on his way, because after all, he is now part of that process of righteousness as well. Even though he seemingly lost the case, he really won. For now, true justice has been properly carried out. May our joint study of the teachings of Yehuda ben Tabai hasten the redemptive process of Eretz Yisrael, of Yerushalayim, hopefully the redemption of the whole world, because Isaiah taught, Sion b'mishpat tipadeh, Zion indeed will be redeemed through proper levels of justice. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom v'bracha.